Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on financial integration. And we are going to be talking about how to bridge the gap between S&OP and finance. So I'm here and my colleague Enzo is also here, and we will be your hosts for today. So Enzo, if you can switch to the agenda or the next slide. Yeah, so I want to give a short introduction and talk about our vision on S&OP and what is the link to finance, let us say, in SNOP or in traditional SNOP. I also want to shortly talk about our vision on strategy-driven SNOP. So over the last 2 years, by writing a book on supply chain strategy and financial metrics, and also seeing that there is a disconnect not only between SNOP and finance, but also between financial planning and strategic planning processes. We've created a vision which is called strategy-driven SNOP. I also want to shortly talk about that, and then I will hand over to Enzo, which will really zoom in the integration between SNOP and finance and where integration stops and where really financial planning starts. I think that's the summary of what we want to bring today. So if you can bring me to the next slide, Enzo. So this is who we are, what we do. So experts in SNOP. We are the European partner of Arqiva. So if you are looking for a decent software system, Arqiva is in the magic quadrant, the leader quadrant of Gartner. So it's really one of the systems you should take a look at. And Enzo will later on also show how Arqiva as a tool supports financial integration and financial planning for some of our customers. And on the left of the slide here, you see SNOP and different steps in SNOP, segmentation, product management, and so on. And in this process, in the past, in the middle round, you now see our 7-step approach: awareness, envision, engage, design, and so on. So in one of the upcoming webinars, we will explain our 7-step process to drive sustainable change. That's also a work we have done over the last 3 months to really compile our experiences and bundle that into a better structured approach specifically for SNOP implementation. And in the past, in that inner circle, we had different key enablers for SNOP. And one key enabler was aggregation, disaggregation, because SNOP as a process, if you want to get sales involved, if you want to get senior management involved, you need to be able to show figures on an aggregated level. But at the same time, planning is about the details. In the end, you need to produce a specific SKU and you need to ship a specific SKU to a specific customer. So aggregating and disaggregating is a key enabler for the SNOP process. A second key enabler, which was there in that inner circle, was scenario management. And that remains the case. If you run SNOP, take, for example, these COVID-19 times, there's a lot of uncertainty and nobody has a crystal ball. But if you run scenarios, you are better prepared on what could happen, and you are better prepared to then really track and monitor which of the defined scenarios is happening or which scenario most resembles the current situation you are in. And the third element, which was on that inner circle, was volume and value. And planning on the one hand is a volume thing. I need to produce X tons or X kilo or X square meters of a specific product or package a number of units. But here again, if we want to involve salespeople in the forecasting process, if we want to get executive management buy-in, we need to be able to talk value, dollars and euros. And on the one hand, that is easy, translating volume into value. That is common sense, and it's a key enabler. And at the same time, the question is, where do we start and where do we stop? If I look at sales volumes, okay, do I just use the standard sales price or do I use an actual sales price? Do I account for any price reductions? Do I account for any year-end reductions that are in the contracts with my customers? And certainly on the cost side, will I be using standard cost, or do I really try to make a difference between what is fixed cost and what is variable cost? So if you start elaborating volume versus value in a bit more detail, there's a whole new world which is coming up. And if you go to the next slide, Enzo.
Yes.
That's our vision on strategy-driven SNOP. And what this vision says is that, okay, we have SNOP as a process. In any case, you have financial processes. Finance is typically in the lead for the budgeting process. In a lot of companies, especially publicly listed companies, finance is also trying to make a financial forecast for the end of the quarter or potentially the rest of the year. And the financial forecast is not just a top line forecast, but it's also an EBIT forecast. And if we want to come to a reliable bottom line projection, we most probably need a lot of details, both on the sales price and net sales, and also on the cost price. We need to have realistic cost assumptions in our calculations. So we have SNOP. There is a couple of financial planning processes which today are really in the finance department. And strategy-driven SNOP says, you also have strategic planning processes. And in general, there is a disconnect. There is a disconnect between what finance is doing and what supply chain is doing. And what Enzo will explain later on is, okay, how do we bridge the gap between sales and operations planning, which today is typically a supply chain process? How do we bridge the gap between SNOP as a process and the financial planning processes? That's what will be the focus of this webinar. But equally likely, we see there is a disconnect between, okay, what is the financial planning or budgeting doing, and what is the long-term strategic planning of the customer. And as we have described our vision on SNOP, that's the vision of the previous slide, we also have described our vision on how to integrate really these different planning processes: strategic planning, financial planning, and SNOP planning. That's our vision on strategy-driven SNOP. All of that is described in detail in vision papers. If you are interested, don't hesitate to reach out to us. I think both vision papers are also available on the website. And so what Enzo will zoom on into today is, what is financial integration? So how do we bridge the gap between SNOP and the financial planning? And we believe that we need to go one step further. So instead of just trying to integrate and try to make a kind of a bridge, that's what is often happening today, that we really need to look for a full integration of the two processes. And instead of still having kind of two separate processes, see if we cannot really connect these two processes into one integrated process. And Enzo will talk about not only how to do it, but also why we really need to do this, why financial integration, just trying to bridge, is most probably not enough and still leads to a couple of problems. So Enzo, I hope that was a fair introduction to the story you are going to tell, and now I will pass the word to you.
Thanks, Bram. Hi everyone, good afternoon. So I will start as the main topic of today, the financial plan versus SOP plan. I will give a little bit introduction of why I come with this topic. So a few years ago, I was a financial analyst. I was doing the FP&A controlling part of work. So I do build the budgeting and the financial plan in the financial department. Then I moved to the supply chain department on another company. So I built also the SOP plan. Then beginning, when I was in supply world of finance world, I complained to the supply chain. And then when I was in supply chain world, I would complain of finance, because those two plans can never be reconciled, and there's always a gap. So then I started digging why we have the gap and how to close this gap, if that's possible. So financial plan and SOP plan. We all know we have an SOP process the traditional SOP process will deliver volumes. That volumes will be on the product family level, but the base of these volumes is actually start with very detailed level. Normally, companies start with SQ level and sum up to the product family, and it's really a volume-driven plan. So with this volume plan, we can easily visualize with a standard cost or a standard selling price to have a SOP plan in value. So that's what we talk here, the SOP plan in value. On the another side, you have a FP&A process, which is doing also a forecasting, but that will be a forecasting in value, which will deliver a financial plan. That financial plan is more value-driven. We will have more accurate cost of goods sold, more accurate price, and it already starts at much higher level than the detail level. So, and the result is those two plans, you always have a gap. And because the level is different, the gap is quite difficult to understand. So if in a normal world, if there's a gap exists, the normal reaction is we can take 3 steps. We first visualize the gap, then we understand the gap, then we will try to close the gap. But I've tried this way of these two plans, which apparently is not working very well. So I will still go through that process to see how I end up with this approach. So we visualize this plan. That's not really a difficult part because we all have financial data. We can just use the volumes times the financial data. We'll have 2 plans. So that's not really a pinpoint. So here I try to visualize these 2 plans. Then you can see in blue color, that's the SOP plan in value, and in orange color is the financial plan. Well, the challenge starts after that. So once you do the financial integration, you do visualize your gap. But to understand the gaps is really difficult because the financial plan normally do not have a very detailed. So people cannot really reconcile between the financial plan and SOP plan at one SQ level. That's already a challenge. Then if you are trying to close this gap, it makes the task even worse. I do identify the 3 options to close the gap. So the option 1, do nothing. We just leave the gap as it is. There's no way to close it. We just leave it like this. Then option 2, we can change the operation plan. So in our case, the blue curve can be increased to become exactly the same as financial plan, but this will really disconnect it from reality. Second, we're talking about a kind of unconstrained supply planning, so we don't really care about capacity. And also on the demand side, do we have enough demand to materialize this plan? So it's very challenging. The last option, we can change the financial plan. Well, that might be even worse. It will be nearly impossible because that means you need to withdraw your commitment to stakeholder and the shareholder, which most of companies do not want to do. Second, we are going to disconnect it to a 5-year business plan, which is also very painful. So with this, I would say try to close the gap. Try to close the gap. It's another mission impossible. So here I would like to hear the opinion from the attendees. I will start very soon a poll to know what's your preferred option. So let me try to get the poll. I will launch it. So if now you can see the question, please give me your vote. Let me know what's your preferred option before I go to next discussion. Okay, so I think we have all the vote. Okay, I will close the poll now. Oh, people stop. Okay, I will close the poll now. I will also share the result. So with all the people who voted, I can see, well, 35% want to change the SOP plan, 35% want to change the financial plan, and 24% want to change, will give another opinions, which I was not expected, because for me, I think do nothing might be the best option here, because it's very challenging to do to change to those.
And so I have a suggestion here for somebody who says on the other part, iterative process between finance and SNOP. So also other people feel free, if you set other, to maybe just throw in the questions box what you would do differently. I think that was was looking to potentially share some of those ideas.
So I will keep going first, then we can maybe discuss this during the Q&A session.
Okay.
Okay. So I will keep going. So now with this, because I see those two, to change those two plans are very challenging. So I'm thinking, where is the origin of the gaps? Where the gap is really come from? So if I reproduce, if I look at my role in the past about FP&A, I look at the definition, it's pretty similar to what supply chain defined. So we're talking about quarter and year strategy plan, investment, and also the commitment to the external holder, shareholder. Then if we look at the organization of the finance, we have the controller on the left side, we have FP&A on the right side. We know the controller will mainly put the historical number in order, and FP&A make sure the forecast in the order. Then for those two peoples on the left side, we'll go through a monthly closing process, and on the right side, it will go to a monthly rolling forecasting process. That monthly process makes me also to think, if I put all the departments, all the stakeholders, supply chain, finance, sales, marketing, FP&A in one page, what will this looks like? If it will be a fishbone structured, that will looks quite interesting. But before I go to that, I continue to decouple those two plans. So let me first show you this graph, which on the left side SOP plan and the right side financial plan. I can see the historical is exactly the same, but they lead to a different future. Well, in a lot of cases, it's because we add some ambitious to the SOP plan by finance. So then I go to the fishbone. In the fishbone, here I have all the departments in one place. I can see from sales, they will create a favorable gap because they know that there will be a new win, which finance do not know. Then I have also on the supply side, they will have more improvement on the internal OTIF or productivity, which will bring a favorable gap on the production volumes. Actually, those two can be grouped on the SOP process. So on the sales, we do review this during the demand review meeting. On the supply, we do review this on the supply review meeting, and this is actually a part of SOP process. And on the financial part, on the monthly closing, the controller is basically compare the standard cost and actual cost to see the variance, and those information is not shared with supply chain team. And on FP&A, they will also have some saving in the revenue. On the monthly closing, this information is also not shared. So if I look at all those together, you will see for those, you can also have the budgeting and LRP process. But if we focus on the monthly process, I can see both finance and the supply chain do have a monthly cycle, and they are analyze the same historical data on the different angle, and they collect different variance to project for the future. So here I'm going to say that no one in the company can see the full picture at the same time, it should be a cross-team effort, and it should be a monthly cycles to review all the variance. Then once again, I go to those two plans. So I have left side SOP plan, deal with volumes, right side FP&A plan, deal with the values. And the conclusion from the first slide, I will say the gap can be very easily visualized by using the financial integration, but it's very hard to understand and it's nearly impossible to close. So my conclusion is, can we just prevent the gap from the beginning? So how are we going to do that? If we look at this slide, we do have already an answer. We can just put those two processes in one process. So we merge the SOP process with finance FP&A process to make it one process. We have the price, the cost, all those variants that are analyzed by finance. We have the volumes that can be already reviewed in the demand review, supply review by the supply chain team. What if we have these volumes times these volumes, this value, then we have our one plan. So that's actually is our solution to solve this gap. In more details, how regarding to the framework and the process, I will first introduce our framework of the financial planning. So we always first visualize the gap, then we do the projection, then the result of projection, we will go for the optimization or the long range planning. So here we want to really cut the process in three process, the sub process. So first, we would like to integrate the financial data. So it's a volume value translation. It will be a display of historical data, and it will be not really only the volume driven, but it will be financially driven and integrated with volume planning from the SOP plan. The result is the supply team can review the volumes, can analyze the demand and the production volumes, and from finance side, they can review the history, they can do the year-on-year variance, they can also analyze the current portfolio based on the volume value and the very possible also the margin. So it's really a translation of integration of the financial data to current SOP plan. Once this has been complete, so once we have a financial plan and SOP plan in one platform, then we can start to do the planning. The planning here is not only the volume planning, but also the value planning. So we will use the volumes with the value to project the future rolling forecast and build the budget. In the monthly cycle, we can also do a financial reconciliation, not only on volumes, but also value. Then we will continually to do the gap analysis to see if the budget, if the actuals is diverged from the budget or from the previous rolling forecast, and what will be the root cause? Is that because of price or it because of volumes? We are not only analyze on one hand volumes by supply chain, on another hand the price or cost by finance. We analyze price and volumes mix at the same time, and also we will try to balance the supply and demand on a more holistic way, not only look at the volumes but also the total impact of margin. So by understanding all this, we will be able to do a projection of the future plan, and that plan can have multiple scenarios. The ambitious from finance can be one of those scenarios. So here actually we are built one plan at this stage. Once we have this one plan, we can use this one plan on multiple ways. One of the ways that we can use the detail of that plan, the price, the cost, the setup cost, the standard cost, as an input to an optimization to further optimize the result. So in optimization, we're normally saying that are we going to maximize profit or minimize the cost? Well, the revenue or the price or the cost is actually either a standard cost or it's a make-up cost. So here we will use the real cost, we can use the real price to do this type of optimization. Then this result, the one plan, can also feed to the long-range planning to see what if the price is continue to increase, what will be the impact to the 5 years business plan. So here, on this stage, we can do a value-driven optimization based on the one plan that we delivered from the previous 2 courses. Then this is the framework. So how are we going to further detail this framework to a process? On the next slide, here you can see to decouple this framework to the detailed process, we have more steps to go. So first, we will do the financial integration. The financial integration is the translation from volumes and value. By do this translation, we can already display the historical data on both volumes and value. So we can have a kind of vertical comparison to see what will be the gross margin percentage, horizontal comparison to see what will be the year-over-year growth in both volumes and value. Then on the projection side, we do know the price of today, we do know the cost of today. At this moment, we can see how are we going to change the price, how are we going to change the standard cost, how this will impact the future outlook. Then we will do a projection of the net turnover and the cost of goods. And also we can do an inventory projection based on the inventory price. So this integration will give us that one plan actually. So that one plan means we will have both volumes and value analyzed in one place, and based on this one plan, we can start do the planning. And that planning is no longer the traditional SOP plan only on volumes or FP&A plan only a value driven. It will be both actually at the same time. So to do that plan, we will first follow the FP&A process to doing the rolling financial forecast. We can project the P&L, we can project the EBIT, we can have more detailed cost variance analysis to see, okay, this is our projected standard cost, and that was the standard cost materialized, that's the actual cost. What's the difference? Why we have the variance? Is that variance one-off, or it's a structural variance that we need to take into account for the future projection? Then also we can involve more financial colleagues to put other expense, other non-operating expense to structure our P&L, which basically will give a very good P&L projection by using already the output that we gain from the SOP process. Then we can already build the budget on this rolling forecast, because if you already have a rolling forecast which is accurate, then the budget is basically extend this rolling forecast to 1 year basis, 12 months, and then you can do further analysis on the gap between the budget and what you foresee, plus the top-down assumption that you might receive during the budgeting process. Well, the budget is one-off exercise. In most of companies, the budget starts in summertime, and by September, then you have the budget. Then you stop, analyze it. Well, we also suggest to make a budget more dynamic. You will also need to revise your budget because today's world is changing very fast. I believe that the budget for next year of none of the company will be useful because of the corona. So we will always need to adapt our assumption. We will always need to analyze the gap and revise the budget based on the rolling forecast. So it's very important to have a budget latest estimated And this budget rate is estimated, which will already incorporate all the assumptions that we recently received to drive the optimization, to drive the long-range planning. So this actually, the last step of this process is the value-based optimization, which is very advanced. So far, that's the process we are going to do. Solventure. I will also start another poll to ask the question to all the stakeholders. Which step your company is actually doing now? Are you already review your historical data, which is already based on your SOP plan? Are you already project the price and the cost on your SOP plan already? Or are you doing already the rolling forecast? So I will launch this pool again. Which step doing? Launch. Okay. So please give me your opinions. I will close the pool and I will show also the result. So already also 14% people is already doing the value-driven optimization. Another one is doing none of the above. We can have some discussion during the Q&A. Okay, I will hide the results. I will go to some practical examples that we've done for the customers. Okay. So this is one of the customers that we built the financial integration. So it's a kind of landing page we delivered. You can see we start first integrate the historical data, then we do some price simulation, then we visualize the outlook of the future. So you can see here that we do have also another challenge is in exchange rate. So we give customers a possibility to simulate their price, and that price will be converted on the fly to different currency. Then the change of the price on one currency, in this case will be on custom currency, will give you already an indication how that means on our corporate reporting currency in terms of gross turnover. Then we also visualize the final result, so you can simulate your price. Also on the other hand, you can simulate your cost to see, okay, that's my volumes from the demand planning, or that's the gross turnover based on the price that I received from different sales folks. Then I have the discount, then I have the net turnover. My cost with my cost of goods, I see my gross margin. And also we have a capability to just show you a year-to-date report. So that means today we are on April, then what will be the year-to-date result on 2017, 2018, 2019, is that comparable or not? So this type of result is helping the FP&A team and also the supply team to see how the historical data, how the historic performance of the financial result. Then on the other customers, we always follow the same structure, but we also enable the simulation of the scenarios. So in these particular examples, you can see we can have a scenario management to say, okay, that's my volume plan. What if, based on today's situation, the Corona-19, what if my price will increase by 5% and the volume increase by 20% as an optimistic scenario? What's the result to my total turnover, to my gross margin? Then what if I have a perspective, I have the pessimistic scenarios? What if my price decrease at the same time my volume decrease? So all these scenarios will facilitate the company to make a right decision of the SOP process. Then we also have the possibility to calculate the cost of goods manufactured. So in these particular examples, we do have all the raw materials. We know the standard cost of all raw materials. We know the activity cost of the manufacturing process. So we can easily build the manufacturing cost or the standard cost, the actual standard cost for each component or for each active cost, and break down to the different components. In this case, we can have also the breakdown at the monthly level to see the change of the actual cost. So it's a real cost, manufacturing cost breakdown. Then on the other case, that it's more looking into the planning part of the process, where we will have also built the budgeting, and this budgeting will deliver the price, cost, and the gross margin, and to become an input of 5-year plan. So that will also enable the company to dynamically revise based on the latest assumption or latest change in the external world to see how the event that happened today will impact the 5-year business plan. Okay, so that's all I'm going to present. So to conclude all I've been said, in most of company that the financial plan is always diverted from the operation plan. We always have a gap exist. We can simply visualize the gap by using a financial integration, by introduce the financial data to the SOP plan. But to understand the gap and try to eliminate it, it's become a mission impossible. So that's why at Solventure we propose a solution to prevent the gap by merge that traditional SOP process with FP&A process as a one monthly cycle process. And our framework and process are helping and guiding customers to really achieve that one plan. Okay, we still have 7 minutes left, so I will start the Q&A session. Please.
So if you have questions, you can drop them in the questions box. Maybe, Enzo, you can visualize your previous slide again.
Yes.
Because that's where you present your conclusion. So if people have questions or suggestions, you can throw them in the questions box. Can you see the questions box, Enzo?
I can see that, yes.
So first question here is, in your experience, combining two such complex and detailed processes, such as financial planning and SNOP into one, does it not become too big and too difficult to handle? So is it realistic to combine the financial planning and the SNOP into one plan? That's the question. Maybe you can answer.
Yes.
Enzo.
Yeah. So from my point of view, it won't increase the current process. Because we are not going to do all the monthly clothing that financial doing on the supply side, and all the supply is doing. I'm not going to repeat it on the financial side. Actually, the activity will be remaining the same, where we just provide one place for both supply colleague and the finance colleague to access to it and share the information. Because for the monthly clothing, there's certain activity that the supply part is not really care, like to correct some order entry issues. It's more about if the controller detect some structure change of the standard cost, which will impact the future projection. That's interesting by supply chain. By showing this information is already merge the two process in a way. So I don't see it will become too big or difficult to manage.
Yeah. If I can try to rephrase that, Enzo, I think also in the cases you have shown, it's about trying to understand which is the shared interest, right?
Yes.
And part of the information might not be required to be in a shared platform, but if we can assure that the essential information is shared and is in one common platform, it can help to more easily understand the gap between the financial plan and the SNOP and the monetized SNOP plan. Second question here, evaluation of volumes. That's something where we struggle, as there are many conditions specific per customers, etc. So what I can in any case say is that what I've seen in some projects, and Enzo, you can then add to that, is that the question is, where do you keep the pricing information And at least I know from one reference where the detailed pricing information is in SAP. And what we then do is indeed load that detailed pricing information into the Archiva planning tool to be able to, for instance, come to a good estimate of the net sales versus just the gross sales. And of course, the result is as strong as the data. Garbage in remains garbage out. And there is a lot of data involved for sure. And that's also the reason I think why we as Solventure have been investing in good data integration capabilities, because let us say some of the information will be in the ERP and you will need to get access to that in your planning system to be able to get to a correct view. So transferring data in an easy way will be key to support that.
Yeah.
Maybe let's pick the last question also, given the time, Enzo, maybe you can take that one.
Yes.
What specific information about the finance month closing is key to share with supply chain? So can you tell something more about that?
Yes. So on the monthly closing, you have quite a lot of different activity. We can talk about the monthly closing for a controller. It can be also for a plant controller. Well, we're not really interested of the one-off funding during that monthly closing. If on every month closing, the controllers see a variance, and it can be a favorable gap and it can be an unfavorable gap, those type of structure change of current cost or price, that's really interesting to the supply chain, because that will impact your future valuation of the volumes. Are you going to continue to use a standard cost, which based on the monthly closing funding, those standard cost is already out of date, it's too low or it's too high? Then if you continue to use this standard cost or the standard price, basically you already create a gap when you valuize your volumes.
Yeah. So if I can try to just rephrase, Enzo, what you say is that maybe the exact reason of the variance is not of interest. But if we know that the standard cost price is no longer correct because the variance is structural, then I don't want to continue just using the standard cost in my financial valuation, because I already know that will cause a gap, which then I will need to re-explain, so to speak, next month again. So it also means that instead of then just flying on the standard cost price, so to speak, not only having a standard cost price, but also an expected variance in the SNOP plan or in the financial translation of the SNOP plan will lead to more realistic financial translations and will also lead to better decisions, because also in that type of situation, if I use the standard cost or if I use a modified standard cost which accounts for the variance, that will clearly lead to different decisions. So I think our time is up. If you would still have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. But in any case, thank you for attending. Feel free to share your opinion, your thoughts. Enzo, thank you very much for taking the lead and putting the time in. We are more than happy to stay in touch with you in these special times. Thanks for attending and hope to see you then back at the next occasion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Enzo.
Bye-bye.